The X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I'm going to be your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern on the Talkstar Radio Network, the X Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio, Euro High Definition Radio, Star Cable, and our growing family of broadcast affiliates right across Canada, the United States, the Caribbean, Central America, South America, the Pacific Rim, Asia, India, Africa, and Europe. Worldwide toll-free, there's only one number, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, you can always chat with us here in our studios by typing in xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. A couple of quick notices. The X Chronicles newspaper starts its international distribution this coming weekend. That's number one. Number two, the X Zone store is now reopened with plenty of new merchandise from the X Zone radio show, the X Zone TV show, and of course, our Paragators TV series. That's at www.xzonestore.com. X Zone Nation, my first guest tonight is, well, let me tell you a little bit about him first. His name is Dr. Lou Bordisso, and he is a former bishop. That's right. And we're going to be talking about, all right, Mother, are you sitting down? Sex in the priesthood. How common is it? Now, as difficult as it is for some Roman Catholics to comprehend, priests are men and very with needs, for relationships and sex. This could account for the surge in the number of gay, straight, and bisexual priests with live-in partners, anonymous sexual activity, and illegitimate children. And it may also explain why so many priests are conflicted with a new moral dilemma. Well, my guest this hour is former Bishop, the Most Reverend Lou Bordisso, a licensed marriage and family therapist for 25 years. He has surveyed priests from around the country to discover the why behind the increase in consensual sex in the priesthood. And the answer was fairly straightforward. I'm not going to answer that. I'm going to let my guest this hour, Dr. Lou Bordisso, answer that. And tell me, Doctor, what's the answer?
Oh, hi, Rob. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Well, there's a lot of answers to the question as to why priests are having sex, but it's not something that's brand new. It's been going on for many, many years, and since the beginning of the church, and over time there's been censures from various popes and religious administrators and bishops that some have worked, some haven't. The sanctions have been very severe from time to time, and now we're seeing again a surge of wanting more honesty in the priesthood and in the church. I tell you, I wrote this book, and as a matter of fact, to tell the truth. I'm hoping to promote some more transparency and honesty in the church, because I think most Catholics are disgusted with the church's cover-ups, the veil of secrecy, and all the smoke screens that surrounding these public scandals that we can't miss in everyday media, in the newspaper or on TV.
Sure.
And so I offered these priests an opportunity, all, gay priests, straight priests, bisexual priests, to speak anonymously in their own voices without any fear of retaliation. And they were pretty clear about their sexual behaviors. So it's, I think, a real eye-opener. And as you say, some Catholics might be offended, but at least it's a start talking about the anonymous sex and ongoing relationships that these priests are having.
All right, Doctor, you and I have to take a 2-minute commercial break. When we come back, X Zone Nation, we're going to be talking about, are you ready for this? Sex, Celibacy, and Priesthood. That's the name of the good doctor's new book, Sex, Celibacy, and Priesthood. His website is www.sexcelibacyandpriesthood.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break with Dr. Lou. Don't go away. Take a step back in time and discover old Florida cuisine at Marsh Landing Restaurant in Fellsmere. Enjoy delicacies such as frog legs, gator tail, catfish, and swamp cabbage, or enjoy the more traditional cuisine like hand-cut Angus steaks, ribs, and seafood. Join us for breakfast with a southern flair featuring sweet potato pancakes, biscuits, and gravy, and much more. Planning a party? Marsh Landing's private dining room can accommodate groups from 8 to 80 people. While you're visiting, enjoy the historic pictures, artifacts, and stories that line the walls. Marsh Landing is truly a unique experience. Marsh Landing Restaurant, 44 North Broadway in historic Fellsmere, or visit marshlandingrestaurant.com. Marsh Landing, old Florida cuisine at its best. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone broadcast network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
We all desire health, happiness, and fulfillment, but often get in our own way. Repeated patterns that leave us out of control can keep us feeling powerless, frustrated, and unable to move forward in spite of our best efforts. Unconscious patterning disconnects us from our gifts, often destroying the very thing we seek. But there is an answer. We can take charge of our destiny and heal the trauma of our history. Shamanism is an effective ancient modality that can reconnect us with our true selves, empower the creation of our dreams, and return us to health and balance. Cody Alexander is a certified shamanic practitioner and teacher with 11 years' experience. Email healingpathways33@gmail.com or visit codyalexander.net to schedule a long-distance shamanic session today.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My guest this hour is Dr. Lou Bordisso. He is the author of a new book that's going to shake the Vatican. I swear I can just see the Pope getting his tranquilizers ready right now as we're talking about this. The book is entitled Sex, Celibacy, and Priesthood. His website is www.sexcelibacyandpriesthood.com. Maybe, Dr. Lou, we can just go back a little bit in time. Why was it, or why is it, that priests are supposed to be celibate? God, they're human beings.
Indeed they are. Boy. We go back in time, you could start it around up until about the 3rd century.
Mm-hmm.
Celibacy was not an issue in the early church.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere around between the 3rd and the 11th century, it was more on a regional basis where various communities were kind of popping up, and at local levels there were options for celibate chastity, specifically for people who are living in community. But then you got around the time of the Council of Trent, around the 11th century and so on, and it was more of a universal codified expectation of celibacy, and you also had some dualistic thinking, the separation of the sacred and the profane.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really intended for people who had the charism or the gift of celibacy, who wanted to live in community, such as monks or nuns, which you get both in Christianity as well as in other major religions like Hinduism and Buddhism, for example. And that can, because of some theorize because of financial reasons and power and control and money, we got into a place where celibacy has been imposed rather than an option for those who freely choose celibacy in a response to what they consider to be God's call.
Now, how come in some religious philosophies, and I'm an Anglican, I was baptized a Roman Catholic, but then my mom got into an argument with the church, and we left that church, and then I was rechristened an Anglican.
Yes.
There are members of the clergy in the Anglican faith that are married, that are living in relationships. It seems more natural when you go to church. Now, please, I hope that I'm not going to offend any Catholics out there. This certainly isn't my goal by saying this, but it seems more natural to go to a church where someone is married and they can understand if there's any crisis within the marriage, how to better handle it, because they've got a better handle on it.
Indeed, and in the Roman Catholic Church, I think that congregations are much more receptive to married deacons who are ordained clergy when they're preaching, especially around sexuality, marriage, family issues, than they are of quote-unquote celibate priests. And we also have, by the way, unfortunately, is the more conservative end of the Anglican tradition coming over to the Roman Catholic side to find some refuge in their conservative agenda. But nevertheless, we do have married Episcopal priests coming to be Roman Catholic priests, and they are also ordained and have families and are being supported by the church. So it's in today's Roman Catholic Church, there are, in fact, married clergy. We have, obviously, deacons and newly accepted Episcopal priests. And I'm not so sure if there's Lutherans now I'm thinking about it, but there may be a few Lutherans mingled in there.
You say that most priests view celibacy as something imposed and unnatural. Can you elaborate on that, sir?
Mm-hmm. Well, celibacy is a condition for ordination in the Roman Catholic Church. Now, I was ordained within the old Catholic Church, which, by the way, is in full communion with the Episcopal Church, traditionally. And I left the old Catholic faith tradition when I retired, and I actually reconciled with Rome, but I'm not in active ministry. I am in private practice. But it is definitely something that's not a calling for all people who are wanting to be priests. Now, I don't think there's a lack of vocations. I think that there's just a lack of creative thinking on the part of the Roman Catholic authorities. And we have women who want to be priests.
Right.
We have married priests who want to return to the priesthood and never got laicized. And we have also people who feel called to a true gift of celibacy and celibate chastity. It's just a matter of the church recognizing the vocations that are already there. I do not believe there is a vocations crisis. I think there are plenty of people waiting in the wings wanting to get into active ministry in the church, but the church is not willing to extend an invitation to those who are already married or other than deacons.
Is this another way that the Catholic Church and other religious philosophies are trying to modernize themselves? Because it seems that the old doctrine isn't working with today's society.
Yes, and I would say that the downside of imposed celibacy, as you say, is not working.
Yeah.
Imposed celibacy, unfortunately, has become a safe haven for men who enter the seminary who have unresolved sexual conflicts, or even a hiding place for seminarians and priests who have arrested what I call arrested psychosexual development. And so we have sexually immature men who are drawn to quote-unquote celibate priesthood who want to deny their sexual feelings, and it comes out, their sexual feelings comes out in negative ways, and they have sexual acting out, and it leads to all sorts of possible sexual violence, abuse, addictive sexual behaviors, or other, addictive behaviors like we're all aware of, at least this is talked about, alcoholism in the priesthood, or other substance abuse, gambling, or people who want to are addicted to work,
right?
Or perfectionists. So their denial of their sexuality and their sexual urges is coming out in all sorts of negative ways.
When somebody enters the priesthood, are there any psychological profile examinations that they go through to see if they can live up to the reputation and the power that a priest actually wields in his community?
There are. The screening has gotten much more intense since the scandals have come to light with consenting adults, as well as the whole pedophilia issue, which is a separate issue. But the screening is definitely there. What I would say the seminaries are still lacking in this regard is an open and honest discussion while a person is in formation about sexuality and sexual orientation, because there's still the fear of retribution or retaliation if you talk openly in the seminaries or in houses of formation. Rarely, if at all, do seminaries or formation programs. Some scholars have actually surveyed in a systematic way all seminaries in the United States, and there are no classes in the virtues and values of healthy celibate living. Absolutely none. Now, there are some classes in some seminaries on sexuality, human sexuality in general, and homosexuality in particular, so that they can teach the formal and official disciplines of the Roman Catholic Church in the seminaries. But for individuals to discuss this in a seminary program with other seminarians or with the staff or authority figures is really putting themselves at risk of not getting ordained. So therefore you have this culture of duplicity and deceit and dishonesty, and it's this don't ask, don't tell type of situation.
Has there been any comment from His Holiness or members of his Vatican staff when it comes to, the release of celibacy within the Roman Catholic Church?
Yes, and it comes down on the side of the traditional understanding of celibacy. This Pope in particular, and John Paul before him, the second, have been very, very staunch about retaining the traditional understanding of celibacy within the Church, and they seemingly do not want to budge on this issue. Nor do they want to have any discussions around women clergy. But those are two issues that are non-negotiables with this particular Pope. But that's not to say things can't change.
Yeah, exactly.
This is not a dogma of the Roman Catholic Church. It's a simple practice and discipline that was instituted around the 11th century, and it can change as other things have. I mean, Roman Catholics are familiar with not being able to eat meat on Fridays, for example, and for years on end, for centuries on end, and then what happens? Things have changed. That's a discipline. That's not a dogma in the church. So just as that has changed, although it's obviously a different example, celibacy in the church and the practices and disciplines of celibacy in the church can move forward. It doesn't have to remain as static as it is.
You and I have to take another break, Doctor. We'll be back on the other side of the news. Exo Nation, a very interesting conversation with a very interesting man. He's the author of Sex, Celibacy, and Priesthood. His name is Dr. Lou Bordisso. He is a former bishop, and his website is www.sexcelibacyandpriesthood.com. That's www.sexcelibacyandpriesthood.com. Once again, the name of the book is the name of his website, Sex, Celibacy, and Priesthood. I'll be back on the other side of the news with some fine words from our sponsors, with our good guest this hour, Dr. Lou, as we continue from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Don't go away.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
There's a legend shared by many indigenous cultures of a time when the nations were cast to the four corners of the world. Each nation was given a body of sacred knowledge that held a different portion of the truth to preserve. True reality could not be known until all the nations reunited, combining the information. If a single one was missing, the world could not be reborn and darkness would prevail. The Science of Magic Radio is dedicated to reuniting the sacred knowledge. With the understanding, none of us has all the answers, but together we can open new perceptions and possibilities. Through our combined vision, the world can be reborn into a place where darkness no longer prevails. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic daily on the X Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, or visit us at thescienceofmagic.net.
Well, I've got to tell you something, Exo Nation. Burton Cummings should meet our guest this hour, Dr. Lou Bordisso. He is a former bishop, and we're talking about Dr. Lou's new book entitled Sex, Celibacy, and Priesthood. His website is www.sexcelibacyandpriesthood.com, and that's andpriesthood.com. And his book is available online at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. 1-800-610-7035, worldwide toll-free. Email xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, and on MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. Dr. Lou, where does it say in the Bible that a priest must be celibate?
Well, it doesn't. This is more of a tradition and a discipline within the church, at least the Roman Catholic Church. Traditional or Orthodox churches have optional celibacy, and you'll find celibate chastity as a virtue among most major world religions. So it's pretty consistent worldwide as a virtue, as long as it's a freely chosen response to an invitation by God to live a celibate, chaste lifestyle, and it's not something that's mandated or imposed. But you're not going to find it in the Bible.
Okay, if it's the person's own will and his choice that he believes is given to him by God to be celibate, and he's allowed to become a priest, why is it then that those who have not received the celibacy anointment from God are rejected or discriminated against becoming priests?
You know, it's in my opinion, over the course of history in the church, celibacy has been a way by which to foster dependency of priests, both economically and emotionally, onto church and to church authorities. And
so we're talking about control here.
Control and power and abuse of power. Indeed, we are.
So can we actually then compare the way the church is looking at celibacy towards their clergy by keeping them dependent on the church as a form of abuse that we would see in a relationship where a husband controls a wife using the same kind of power, or a wife controls a husband?
We can, but we have also some cooperation by the person who's being abused, in that there's rewards for those people who cooperate with this unhealthy system.
It almost sounds like a Helsinki syndrome.
Indeed.
Yeah. What are the rewards, sir?
Moving up through the clerical system and getting rewards with promotions and advances of becoming, say, a Monsignor or auxiliary bishop, becoming a bishop. As long as you don't ask and don't tell, then you are one of the good old boys who is freely given the gifts of gratification of moving up the corporate system and the corporate ladder.
You know, you use corporate.
Cooperating power and abuse in corporation.
You know, you just said corporation, and I've always looked at the Vatican and Catholicism as a major corporate entity. I know for a fact that the Vatican owns millions and millions and even billions of dollars worth of real estate around the world, including the Montreal Stock Exchange in Victoria Square is owned by a company that, when you do the tracking backwards, you end up in the bank of the Vatican Bank, which is owned by the Vatican. So the way I look at it is that the Pope is the CEO. You've got the cardinals and the bishops who are the board of directors, and then you've got the people who go to church every Sunday, dip into their pocket with their tithing, put it in the collection box as the shareholders.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is a reality, and I'm not so sure. Some people would describe this, corporate body as having a little more power and control at the local level from the top down, but that's not always the case. There's a lot of protections and in fact, that's one of the reasons it's so difficult under canon law to get some of these abusive priests out of positions of authority as, say, a pastor in a local parish.
Why is it that canon law supersedes criminal law?
The church has always seen itself, traditionally at least, as being more authentic, more genuine, if you will, than secular society. And so it sees itself in many ways as being not necessarily above the law, but better than civil law.
Has it come the time when society has outgrown the church, and there is no place in society for an organization like the Vatican and the millions and billions of dollars that it has accumulated and amassed over the years?
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say we've outgrown the church, because it depends on, of course, how we're defining church.
Mm-hmm.
I would define church as the body of Christ and
right.
the people of God.
Yes.
So I don't necessarily, based on that definition, think we've outgrown the church.
I agree with you there.
A model of church
right.
that's abusive. Yeah.
Just like I believe the Second Amendment has been outgrown, because when the Second Amendment was written, the weapon of the day was a muzzle-loading, gun, and not the AK-15 or AR-15 that are being used today in shootings like the one in Aurora, Colorado. So where's the happy medium here then, Doctor? How do we keep both sides happy, but keeping the interest of those who, in my opinion, are most important here, and that's the parishioners?
Well, first of all, we'd need to have, a transparent church. Mm-hmm. And so I propose, at least in the book, as one other person at least, who is a former Christian brother, Salm is the last name, S-A-L-M. But I go a little further in my book, and it's about the only time in the book that I actually offer my own voice and my own opinion. Otherwise, I remain silent unless the priest's voice speak for themselves.
Right.
But I propose that the church base its definition of celibacy and practice of celibacy not on the ideal of sexual abstinence, which is the traditional understanding of celibacy, but a model that is inclusive of all sorts of places a person might be in their journey of celibacy. So I would embrace the reality rather than the ideal, and view celibacy as what I would like to call progressive celibacy, as a person is in formation, or a priest who may have denied or repressed or suppressed his sexual orientation, and it's only now as an adult trying to mature and become a more healthy person, is discovering who he is sexually. So this model would include, the traditional understanding, but also those people who are occasionally going to be having a sexual encounter in order to move toward fidelity to their celibate vow. And also, on the other end of the continuum, those who are having ongoing sex. Hopefully, they'll choose that a road that will lead them out of the priesthood if they're not living their life of fidelity to the vows. But some fellows aren't going to do that. The reality is they're going to stay and they're going to continue to have anonymous sex, or go to bathhouses or movie theaters, massage parlors, phone sex,
choir boys,
internet. Yeah. So I'm saying is let's base this on the reality rather than the ideal, and that way at least we can have a little more honesty and transparency.
Let's get them out of the closet.
Yes, all sorts of people out of the closet. Not the gay priest.
No. That wasn't directed at anyone's sexual orientation. Right. But the way what I see, sir, and what I believe your book is trying to get across is that we need to get all this clear. As you said, we need transparency when it comes to the going-ons, and because I'm sure this must play heavy on the members of the clergy who are doing this behind closed doors or in a closet. It must be doing something to them psychologically. I know they're getting a physical thrill out of it, but I mean psychologically.
Right. Well, there's a saying in Alcoholics Anonymous. I used to go to a lot of codependent anonymous groups, and there's a saying in 12-step programs in general that we're as sick as our secrets.
Yes.
And so, emotionally, we become unhealthy the more secrets that we keep. The more honest and transparent we can become, the more truthful we can become. the healthier we are. And so that is my hope in general for the church, that we move from being a sick church to a healthier church, and the same thing with individual priests, that emotionally become more mature and more healthy as a result of not keeping these secrets and living double lifestyles.
Let me ask you this, sir. What have been the comments and feedback that you've received from friends and other members of the clergy on your book?
It's been, oddly enough, I was thinking as I wrote the book that I was going to, the wagons were going to circle around me, and Catholic apologists were going to come down on me very hard. But the feedback I've been getting among friends has been positive, of course. Yes. But on the Internet, I've been getting comments both from the far left and from the far right, both thinking I'm in their camp because I'm not very self-disclosing in the book. So they're making assumptions because the book is written in such a way that you can pretty much assume that I would be in either camp, and so I've had positive comments on both sides.
Well, plus you're a licensed marriage and family therapist. You've been doing this for 25 years, so you've got credibility. Plus, you've been a bishop, so you know all sides of the story.
Right, and I, by the way, I understand in some ways, and I might be in the minority of this, how some of the bishops might be offering some plausible deniability at the corporate level for legal reasons. I used to sit on a school board locally, and when teachers would get into trouble for various reasons, the board itself in a private charter school would circle the wagons and have plausible deniability until it was time to disclose information to the general public because of legal consequences and financial consequences to the school. The same is true within church circles. I mean, it is a legal corporate body, and their role, in part, as a trustee, is to protect the corporation. Sometimes, and unfortunately, that's at the expense of the victims, and that would go for schools as well, by the way, or any corporate.
But in this case here, there's no such thing as a shareholders meeting, and you can't bounce out the members of the board of directors or have the CEO booted out either.
Yeah, that is a primary difference between, say, a charter school board of trustees, or this is appointed, and there's the old boys network, and they reinforce one another. So I totally agree with you.
Doctor, please stand by. You and I have to take our final break. Exxon Nation, here is the website, www.sexcelibacyandpriesthood.com. My guest this hour is Dr. Lou, I'm going to spell his name so you can Google it, Bordisso. That's Dr. Lou Bordisso. And he's the author of Sex, Celibacy, and Priesthood. It's available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble online, and a number of brick-and-mortar stores are selling it as well. Once again, the name of the book, Sex, Celibacy, and Priesthood. The website, www.sexcelibacyandpriesthood.com. And the good doctor and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break here on the X-Zone as we come to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Just a reminder that the X-Chronicles newspaper starts its international distribution this coming Sunday. And for those of you who have just signed on and are taking our subscription, thank you very much for joining us. We've been publishing the X-Chronicles newspaper now for 20 years monthly. Wow. And we are the world's only paranormal parapsychology newspaper. www.xchronicles-newspaper.com/newspaperstand.htm.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net. xzbn.net.
18 Sergeant Central. 19 Sergeant check. Officers on the scene.
Hi, I'm Larry Lawson, host of Paranormal Stakeout. With over 36 years in law enforcement, I have learned a few things. The most important is the proper gathering and preservation of evidence is vital to putting the bad guy behind bars. It's no different in the world of paranormal investigation. Whether it's the search for the afterlife, cryptozoology, UFOs, and extraterrestrials, how we gather the evidence, preserve that evidence, and present it to a jury of our peers will make the ultimate difference in proving the existence of worlds and entities that are beyond our imagination. Join me, Larry Lawson, every week on Paranormal Stakeout when, along with my guests, we'll take a journey to prove with indisputable evidence what man has struggled to believe for centuries. Go to xzbn.net for the broadcast schedule and check me out at paranormalstakeout.com.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, Soul Balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A soul balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world.
Welcome back, everyone. Dr. Lou Bordisso is our special guest. He's the author of Sex, Celibacy, and Priesthood. His website is www.sexcelibacyandpriesthood. Dr. Lou, what are the 8 ethical standards all priests need to adhere to, sexually active or not?
Well, these are some ethical standards that I've been putting together through the years, and many of them actually come from my own seminary education. But number one, priests need to respect professional boundaries. It's all too often that the clergy and abuse those for their own needs, and so don't become personally involved with a parish member or a pastoral counselee or somebody who's being directed for spiritual direction, because there's a dual conflict of interest. Number 2 is, I would say, don't foster a dependent relationship, but cultivate independence and autonomy on the part of parishioners. Third is to avoid living a life of duplicity and deceit, all of which we've talked about. I would avoid personal interests overcoming the interest of those being served. Avoid exceeding professional competency levels, which I see often. I certainly did as bishop. 6, don't engage in professional behavior when we're ill-prepared or have little training in, and I unfortunately that's all too rampant. And the one that I try to live by, and I promote it with the clergy that I oversaw, is not to impose our personal beliefs or the beliefs of the church or the values of the church or spirituality onto the people of God. Propose, but don't impose. And too often we see church folks imposing beliefs as a way of power and control, or a means of power and control, rather than proposing church disciplines or values. And number 8 is always maintain, of course, professional confidentiality in pastoral care and spiritual direction. And sometimes that has been breached. I know that in Roman Catholic circles, at least the seal of the confession is respected, and it still has a high value.
Right.
But in some circles, you do see this breach of confidentiality.
Wow. Well, Doctor, I want to thank you ever so much for joining us. I wish you much success with your book. I, for one, am thrilled that this book has come out because I think it is well overdue, and my hat is off to you, sir, and I would love to have the opportunity of speaking with you again in the future.
Well, I'd be more than happy to, and I very much enjoyed speaking with you today.
Doctor, take care of yourself, and once again, congratulations on a great book. X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour has been Dr. Lou Bordisso. His website is www.sexcelibacyandpriesthood.com, and that's the name of his book, Sex, Celibacy, and Priesthood. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as the X-Zone continues from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.